G'day, I'm Paul. The Toyota Prius here. I know it's like on the very opposite end of the car enthusiast spectrum, but stacks of people buy them. They've sold over 6 million of them around the world, and they're really popular in places like Los Angeles, where you can buy a beef burger without any beef in it. This here is the Toyota Prius i-Tech. It's the top spec Prius available, a little under $45,000, and it competes with cars like the Hyundai Ioniq. It doesn't really have too many other competitors. It's kind of dominated that niche hybrid segment for a long time now. If you do want to skip ahead to other parts of the review, you can use the time codes on the screen there, or if you're on YouTube, just scroll down to see the chapters below. And if you haven't done so already, hit subscribe, hit the bell icon, and that'll tell you every single time we drive a really popular car like this. I've got a question for you. Why do hybrids have to look like science experiments? Don't you reckon it just looks weird? It's got all these bits and things around the place, all these sharp angles, and wait till you see the rear, that's even stranger. But I think some people like it. They want the world to see that they're helping save the planet, and this is the product of their styling. You can get it in 7 different colors, and all but white is an extra $500. Let's have a little look down here. You would have noticed in some of our other Toyota hybrid reviews that this here, the badge, it is blue when it's a hybrid. So if you see these little blue bits in here and also on the key, it means that it is a hybrid Toyota. And they've plugged as many holes as they can here to keep the car as aerodynamic as possible, but also to cool that tiny little engine and the battery pack as required. So that's why you don't see major gaping grills here. They've gone away from that styling direction in some other Toyota products and just stuck with that minimalist approach, and then just filled in the little bits that they can. Keep in mind, the reason this all looks so strange is because the Prius has a coefficient of drag of just 0.24. That is one of the best on the market, and it means that you aren't going to create much resistance as the car is cutting through the air. You get full LED headlights with LED daytime running lights. These have an automatic high beam as well and work really well at night time. Jump across to the wheels here, 17-inch alloy wheels, and they may look a little bit strange, and that's because they have these aero covers on them. This reduces the amount of wind resistance you get on the side of the car, and then they have ultra low rolling resistance tyres as well. They're 215 millimeters wide, and these are designed to effectively make sure the car can roll for as long as it can without the rubber slowing it down. Another hybrid badge on the side here, just in case you don't know, the Prius is a hybrid. And then have a look at these little vanes here for that aero. They chop the air up as it comes along the side of the car and come around to the back. This is where the design just gets a little stranger in my opinion. You have a separate glass house down here. So from the driver's seat, you can see out this window. The only problem is that when it's been raining, it builds up dirt like this, so it makes it hard to see out of. It's not like this window that's often refreshed with water that comes on it. There's no way to really clean this outside of doing it manually yourself. But you do get LED tail lights. You can see that cutting through there. Yet another hybrid badge. Another blue Toyota badge as well, and then a discreet looking bottom end with no visible exhaust pipe. What about interior styling? Well, just like the exterior, the interior is very interestingly styled. They've gone with a lot of different angles. Instead of ahead of the driver being a traditional tachometer and speedometer cluster, it's all grouped into this window up the top that has digital displays plus a digital clock as well. And then the next tier down is your infotainment. Piano black all over the place. I'm really not a fan of this stuff, but normally this marks really easily and leaves scratches, but it seems pretty durable here in the Prius, which is interesting. But what about dashboard softness? Well, we have a hardness tester and I've tested the surfaces. If you're interested to see how this car compares to other cars, just go down to the description. I've got a link there to a table where you can see what other results look like. That's really impressive. So yes, soft enough and very soft over here. And one more styling highlight I might mention. If you look at these air vents, how cool are they? They sort of independently rotate in the center there and then have Prius written on them. Build quality for the most part is pretty good, but I have noticed here this center console kind of moves around a bit. It doesn't really make any noises while you're driving, but it's always a little bit troubling when things like that move around, especially when you've got like a wireless phone charger built into it, which means you've got electronics and other stuff underneath it. Anyway. Let's talk infotainment. Toyota uses a 7-inch infotainment system for the Prius. Now, if you want a detailed review of this infotainment system, you can click up here to watch one that we've recorded previously. But today, I'm just going to take you through a quick look at this so you can get the key features out of the way. The car comes with a 10-speaker JBL sound system, 7-inch infotainment screen that is a touchscreen with shortcut buttons on the side. It comes included with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Works fairly well, flicks through the menus nice and easily. Then on top of that, you have AM, FM, DAB plus digital radio, plus Bluetooth streaming, and the ability to play a CD. This is sort of missing from a lot of new cars today. Navigation seems to work pretty well. It can be a little bit slow though. You can see as I switch through those menus, things take a little bit of time to happen. So it's not the sharpest system in the world, but it does the job, and the fact that you have smartphone mirroring helps out. You have a voice recognition system as well to enter commands into the native navigation and the native infotainment system, or you can use it to send voice commands through your phone's smartphone mirroring system. And Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are both a wired system, not wireless. But there's only one USB port, so if you are connected on smartphone mirroring, there's nowhere else to charge a device. You also have this hybrid menu, which tells you whether you're using the internal combustion engine or the battery system. And then on top of that, where torque is being directed when you are in regeneration mode. Okay, infotainment aside, let's talk about the other features that you're getting. So let's kick off with climate control. You have single zone automatic climate control. There's a couple of curious functions here that are unique to this hybrid setup to save energy. Eco heat and cool, so that'll reduce the amount of air conditioning or heating that's being pumped into the cabin. And this button as well. This eliminates the use of other zones of cooling. So if you are seated in the car on your own, which happens most of the time, you press that button and it switches off any cooling to the back or the passenger side. So it's nice and warm for you, but the rest of the car is pretty cool. And that then means you're saving energy as you drive. You get an auto dimming rear vision mirror, autonomous emergency braking that detects pedestrians. You get blind spot monitoring on the side, reverse camera, but keep in mind, no front or rear parking sensors. I find that really strange. So you have to rely on the camera for the rear, and then there's just no parking sensors at the front at all. Odd omission, I reckon. You get heated seats for the driver and front passenger, radar cruise control, a lane keeping assistant, and a heads-up display. So what does the key look like? Well, let me show you. It has lock, unlock, a panic button, and then on the back you have a Toyota symbol and Prius underneath it. And look at that, blue means hybrid. That's what you've learned. It's a proximity sensing key, so it just stays in your pocket. To unlock it, you grab the door handle, and to start the car, you hit the starter button. What about practicality? Let's start with storage first. I'm going to disconnect my phone. So you have wireless phone charging. So you drop the phone down here and away it goes. It starts charging. You can store your phone in other spots, but I reckon just place it there. Bottle storage. Two big cup holders, and they've got those little grips on them as well, so nothing's going to move around. In the door you have room for a bottle and then a little bit of storage just on the other side of it. Center console here is nice and big with a little tray there for coins and other bits, and then you can lose an entire arm in there. That is pretty impressive. And then let's have a look at the glove box. Glove box isn't too bad, but it's all mostly consumed by that manual. And if you are trendy and have some sunglasses, they will sit nicely up the top there. What about comfort? Yeah, this seat is really, really nice. So I actually have a 1,600 kilometre drive ahead of me tomorrow from Melbourne to Sydney. So I'm keen to see what this is like behind the wheel and whether it is nice and comfortable. In fact, if you check our community tab on the YouTube channel, I'll fill you in on how it all goes. Steering wheel sits nicely in the hand, and yeah, I really can't complain here. Let's talk second row of the Prius. Let's start with room. Knee room is really good. Toe room is pretty compromised. I'm sort of wedged underneath there. Headroom is surprisingly good, but what a cheap and nasty plastics around here. For a car that's, what, $45,000? Would have liked just a little bit more substance to this. Okay, let's have a look at this. Center armrest, two cup holders. See if it fits our bottle. Yes and yes. And then you've got storage in the door as well, but literally you will just fit one bottle. There's no more room for anything else in there. ISO fixed points on the two outboard seats. You've got map pockets in both seats, but have a look at this. It's like this weird sort of zipped up compartment. It's like a pouch on a kangaroo. Kind of expecting an animal to jump out of there or something. Very weird. I haven't seen that in any other car, so that's a curious thing. 12 volt outlet down here, but unfortunately no rear air vents for the second row. Like I said at the front, no USB ports. So if you do have rear seat passengers, they're not going to be able to charge any of their devices. Despite being just a hatchback, it's a pretty decent sized boot. You've got 457 litres of cargo space available there, and it's a generous loading area too. So the lip doesn't sit too high, and then it sits nice and wide as well, so you can get big objects in if you need to. Under the floor here, you'd expect to see a spare tyre, but none of that. You just have a tyre sealant kit. So if the tyre does go flat, you pump some of that in with the compressor, and then it finds a hole and seals it up so you don't need to replace the tyre. let's see how it fits our luggage. That fits in perfectly, and our big suitcase fits in fine. Off to the side here, you have a light in case you need to see stuff at night. You've got 2 hooks on either side that support up to 4 kilos. Now, with this thing here, the cargo blind, that easily falls out of position like that. And then if you do want to expand the space to get to that 1,500 litre mark, the seats drop really easily too. So yeah, really impressive boot space. And then tucked in under here is a second button. When the boot's closed, you press that to lock the car with the key in your pocket, and then you can walk away. Now, before we set off, I just want to show you this little gear lever here. It's quite comical. It just looks weird. To put it into drive, you go across and down. Reverse is across and up. And then there's a B mode as well. I'll run you through what that is in just a second. But let's hit the road. So powering the Prius is a 1.8 litre naturally aspirated petrol engine. It's an Atkinson cycle engine. So how much power does it make? Well, the petrol engine alone makes 72 kilowatts of power and 142 newton meters of torque. But when it combines with the electric motor, it produces 90 kilowatts of power. And they run parallel. This is why it's called a parallel hybrid. They can operate at the exact same time, or you can operate just the internal combustion engine or just the electric motor powering the car. Unlike a proper EV or a plug-in hybrid, you can only use EV mode at low speeds and when the battery is charged. So there is an EV mode button down here. One hit of that puts the car into EV mode and it comes up there saying EV mode. But if you use too much throttle or exceed around 40 kilometers an hour, it says EV mode deactivated. And that means that it goes back to being a hybrid. There are drive modes available. So this little button down here pushes it through normal, eco mode and power mode. You would just have it in normal mode. I know eco mode will save you even more fuel, but it's going to reduce the intensity of your air conditioning. It'll dull the throttle. It kind of just artificially brings the fuel economy down. Normal is perfectly fine for this car, and it still makes it drivable and also doesn't use much fuel at the same time. Throughout the driving cycle, you'll see the car switching between EV and then hybrid mode and then going between eco and power modes. It's quite an intelligent system because you never feel the petrol engine really kicking in. You can hear it if you listen out for it, but it's not like a shunt. And as you set off from a standing start, it's nice and smooth because it's using the electric motor and the battery pack to get the car moving under its own speed. And then you get handy indicators here in front of the driver. They tell you what kind of score you're generating with the driving that you're doing, how intense your braking is, whether the air conditioning is interfering with your fuel consumption in the car. This car is all about putting that fuel figure down as low as it'll possibly go. How low can it go? 3.4 litres per 100 kilometres is the combined average. And generally Priuses are very close to that figure. We're averaging 4.6 litres per 100 kilometres now, but it has been lower and we have been slightly aggressively driving it, so it has climbed a little bit, but that is a remarkable fuel economy figure. Does that mean it's a slug? Well, it is a little bit of a slug, but if you do get stuck into it, the petrol engine kicks to life, you get a little push in the back from the electric motor and the battery. By no means is it unsafe in terms of how quick it is. It's not a Bugatti Veyron, but equally it's not a horse and cart. So it's a good mix of horse and cart and Bugatti Veyron. It's like somewhere in the middle there. All of that torque is sent through a continuously variable gearbox, which is why you don't feel any gear changes throughout the driving range. It all just seamlessly accelerates and it's quite smooth in the way that it delivers torque. Now, what about B mode? So by pushing the gear lever down to B mode, it puts the car into an extra regen mode. So when I let off the throttle, it starts regenerating more energy into those batteries, and that energy in the battery is going to be used later for taking off from a standing start. A lot of people talk about the longevity of batteries in hybrids and EVs. Well, Consumer Reports in the US did an interesting study. They bought two 2001 Priuses, that's a lot of words there, and both of those had varying amounts of kilometres on them. So one had 350,000 Ks on the clock, the other one only had around 3,000 Ks on the clock. What they did is they did a set of performance tests and fuel economy runs in both of those cars and found that they were almost identical. Fuel economy was out by 0.1 litres per 100 kilometres on the car with even more mileage. So it does show you that regardless of how much mileage you're putting on these cars, they don't seem to be too affected by that in terms of battery life. So let's talk road noise. We're out on a country road here. It's coarse chip. There is a fair bit coming into the cabin. It's not going to give you a headache after a long drive, but it is a little louder than normal. The ride is fantastic. I cannot get enough of how well they've been able to smooth this car out. Even with the alloy wheels that it's on, it just glides along beautifully, and it sits on the TNGA platform. That's Toyota New Global Architecture. A lot of Toyota's models are underpinned by this platform, and that reduces R&D costs and makes it easier to just slap other components on top of them, including hybrid drivetrains. That means that it rides beautifully, handles fine for what it is. They are very eco-friendly tyres, so they aren't a Michelin Pilot Sport, so you will run out of grip if you do try and go a little too hard, but for the most part it feels very comfortable behind the wheel. Let's talk visibility. It's actually really good. At the front it's great, at the sides there's these massive windows, the wing mirrors are big enough, there's blind spot monitoring built into those. The only drama I've got is visibility out the rear. There's a bar that goes literally across the center of the window, and I can't see anything through there, and it means that some cars get lost in that. And I mentioned earlier when we were doing the styling walk around outside that the bottom window gets dirty as well, so at night time it makes it difficult to see out of that one too. So I just find it bizarre why they've actually put that bar there and not just designed the tailgate to miss that out entirely. And finally, if you're wondering, this is what it looks like when a Prius goes from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour. The Toyota Prius may not be my cup of tea or an enthusiast cup of tea, but this car is really, really impressive. It is incredibly efficient, it drives beautifully, it rides beautifully. Yeah, okay, it may not be the most stylish car in the world, but styling is absolutely subjective. It does everything it needs to do really well, and that is why this is one of the most popular hybrid cars ever created, and Toyota keeps succeeding with this technology. So, let me know in the comments below, have you bought one? I've heard that these things go forever and you really can't kill them. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What else should you be looking at outside of this? If you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, follow it up with the subscribe, and also press the bell icon so it can tell you every single time we drive something interesting like this. But until next time, take it easy.